Hello, everyone. Welcome to Animator's Breakfast, which is a podcast where we talk to different people who work in the animation industry about shows or, let's say, anything, as you'll find out, that really inspired them and their work throughout the years. And today I've got a really incredible treat. I've got the two best boys from BaM Animation. I've got Maximus and I've got Brent here. So say hello there, boys.
Hey, boys.
Hello, boys. I don't know if I'm the best boy, but I'm definitely a boys.
You're definitely...
They got chunky boys. They got thick boys. I'm a skinny boy.
Skinny boy.
Yeah.
Skinny boy. Stick boy.
How about you, Max?
I'm just a man boy.
Man boy.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys introduce each other.
Ooh.
How about that?
All right. So this is Brent. He is born and bred in Texas. And he spent most of his youth frolicking around the world.
Oh, wow.
Of Warcraft.
Oh, okay. You sucked me in there and twisted that.
Azeroth represent.
And eventually, when he emerged and saw the bright, shiny ball that we call the sun,
Yeah.
he took a flight to Los Angeles to make it big as an animator.
Congratulations. You did.
And he did.
I made it.
Yeah.
And I still play World of Warcraft to this day. But I also animate and live a healthy social life, sort of.
And why don't you introduce Max?
Well, this is the legendary Maximus Paulson, born and raised on the, as he would describe, the dirty streets of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I think from a very young age, he was very interested in drawing. He loved a comic strip called Tintin
Oh, yes.
a lot. And he would, and just like, you know, he would draw those characters. And he had a rough childhood, but he went through foster care and wound up in
Yeah.
Art Center, which is a art design school in Pasadena, probably one of the best in the world.
Wow.
And he pursued a lot of different drawing styles and kind of wound up in TV animation. And, you know, he's just a fantastic artist who really draws characters so well and loves like what I would describe as very try-hard, very difficult types of drawing.
Yeah.
And I think that has always made his art so impressive.
And Brent, by the way, I didn't mention is an incredible. I met him as a prop designer, but he's so much more than that now. He moved on to background design and just anything in the world that he wants to learn, he will learn it.
Yeah.
He's got that unique. He doesn't even think twice about it. He doesn't have any anxiety. He's just like, oh, there's a skill. Let me master it.
I only know a little bit of stuff. But yeah, Max is great. He's very good at improv. He's very good at comedy, very good at art direction.
We have complementary expertise in many different skills.
And I think the most important thing about Max is that he's an information sponge. He wants to learn as much as possible about a subject and then tell you. I love that about him.
Yeah, I would say...
And I love working with him.
I would say that Brent is more the Dr. Dre, and I'm the Eminem.
Okay.
So we're going to make some classics, and one of our biggest classics is called BaM Animation.
Yeah.
It's a YouTube channel, which is tutorials and just fun personality stuff.
Yeah.
We made it out of anger when we were looking on YouTube at other tutorial channels, which were absolute garbage.
Yeah.
So we made ones that were entertaining to watch and had real information that we really feel like you could use, you know, if you were in a professional animation setting.
Yeah.
Or even if you're just at home.
And the personalities come across incredibly well, just in the sketches and everything like that. I remember when I was watching your stuff originally, that's really what drew me in, was just how...
Really? So the opposite of what YouTube analytics is telling us.
Yeah, YouTube is saying they only like us for our tutorials.
Oh, well, no. There's no analytics for creativity, I don't think. And that's really what drew me in. I remember just the little sketches and the way you cut to a drill sergeant and then cutting back to business moguls and stuff. It's just about imbuing all that personality and characterization, which I thought was so much fun. And then the information is incredible as well.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
We're kind of just pulling from stuff that we do every day that might seem kind of boring to artists and animators, but if you really explore each thing, you can come up with like kind of nuts and bolts exciting stuff that I think that like people who don't work in the industry could find exciting.
Yeah.
And I think that Brent has a really good handle on what our audience wants, because you came from, you know, the middle of nowhere and came out here and had to learn everything on your own. I didn't realize how privileged I was going to a fancy art school and accumulating debt.
What a privilege.
Oh, yeah. I had to fight to get into a figure drawing class. Like, that wasn't accessible to me.
That's incredible.
And even then, it was like half a semester, and then like it just went off into nothingness. It's a different place out there.
And I went to free public school, and we had figure drawing at age 13 in class.
That is really cool, because a lot of people don't like art. Even in my school and everything, was just a laughable subject to other people because they didn't really appreciate it. And even those in the class, the teacher just couldn't get a handle on them. So nothing was really learned. They only really focused on art history and stuff, which is nice and knowledgeable, but it doesn't really explore creative vision.
Yeah, that's exactly what I experienced. It's like no one knows really how to approach it. No one's good enough to talk about it. And so it ends up with a lot of really frustrating, angry people who can't really tell each other anything. And it goes 100% on academia, and you learn about the art history.
The way that we write our episodes is we make a list of information and then add more information to that list until it's just a giant list.
Yeah.
And then we add sketches and personality around it.
You guys are doing an awesome job, I've got to say.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Brent, you're doing awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I love your work as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My God. You're the best, dude.
I really appreciate that, guys.
Yeah.
Well, what we're going to do today is something a bit more unusual, where we're going to have a conversation à trois, a three-way conversation about each of the topics that we've chosen. So usually on this podcast, what we do is you guys have just picked something that's inspired you, and we're just going to have a conversation about it. We can talk a bit about your background and everything like that throughout, but really it's more about whatever you picked is the conversation. So, Max, what did you pick?
Yes. So today I picked something that I thought of some really interesting and inspirational, great pieces of art, like Calvin and Hobbes. I thought about The Simpsons, Futurama, great Disney masterpieces. And I had to settle on something extremely honest, which was the first character I ever learned to draw.
Wow.
Garfield the cat.
Garfield the cat. Wow. Tell us a bit more about Garfield.
Well, okay. I've never done a podcast before, and I did a bunch of research so that I can sound smart. But I want to make sure that I am not taking full credit for that, because I watched a bunch of podcasts and videos to gather all this information for your listening pleasure. So here's a couple things that I used as resources.
Okay.
One of the reasons I wanted to do this episode was a YouTube channel called Quentin Reviews. He's got a ton of videos on the weirder aspects of Garfield's canon and history.
Yeah.
And some of the really strange choices that Jim Davis made. So check him out. I got all of the Garfield timeline stats and facts from a nerdy history podcast called Wizard and the Bruiser. These guys actually read all the books, and I just listened to their podcast and made the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
Huge shout out to them for the heavy lifting that they did. I would recommend their podcast, and there's a particular episode which is about the history of Mountain Dew and Doritos that I love. I found this really great documentary made by the YouTuber Ryan Shank.
Yeah.
He has less than 100 subscribers, and he did a seriously awesome interview that's very intimate with Jim Davis about his early life leading up to Garfield today.
Wow.
There's also a very cool interactive map of Garfield's history on the official Garfield site, garfield.com/history.
Oh.
And lastly, there's a really good Vice interview with Jim Davis. It's a recent interview, and it's for the 40th anniversary of Garfield. And he gives a tour of Paws Inc.
Wow.
You can see what a sincere person he is and what an environmentalist he is, and I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it. Why do we like Garfield, right? So let me give you a couple of numbers.
Good question.
18 million people watch the show The Big Bang Theory.
Wow.
On a daily basis, okay?
Okay.
66 million copies of the album Thriller have been sold, and that's the world's best-selling album.
Wow.
But 200 million Garfield books have been sold in the entire like international landscape.
Wow.
And my question right now is why? Why do people like Garfield? What is it about Garfield that makes him this appealing character? And I have a couple ideas, and I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Tell us.
Yeah, tell us all about it. Brent, you obviously know Garfield as well.
I definitely read Garfield, and I watched the show growing up. And I, got the posters in every classroom that just say read, because he was just branded on every educational piece of poster content, laminated teacher thing ever.
Yes. Are you guys aware of what a Q score is?
No.
It's a marketing thing that's done every year where they analyze celebrities, they analyze politicians, and they analyze fictional characters and give them a rating on a scale of 1 to 100 about their recognizability, their likability, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
So Mickey Mouse and Coca-Cola have like 100% Q score, you know? And Garfield has a 95% Q score. He appeals to babies, people on death row. In deathbeds. People in deathbeds.
Probably on death row as well, probably.
Probably everybody. Male, female, kids, adults, your parents. Garfield is universally appealing. And the odd person on the street that you can just show Garfield to would definitely recognize him.
So what about Garfield that kind of... Because I remember when we were having a conversation about choosing, you did think a lot about it, but what kept bringing you back to Garfield?
Okay, well, I think that the best place for me to start is with the man. Garfield was created in Indiana by a man named Jim Davis. And Indiana, by the way, is very important to the story of Garfield because a lot of his humor is very Midwestern. So I know for your context in Ireland,
Thank you.
That might not mean a lot, but Midwestern humor, I would say, is perfectly encaptured in the celebrity David Letterman.
Oh, okay.
It's this sarcastic kind of, I'm polite to you, but I'm going to be a little bit dry, and I'm making fun of you, but you're in on the joke too.
Yeah.
And so Garfield, it's kind of like an introduction to baby's first sarcasm, Like, even as a kid, the idea of sarcasm, didn't occur to me until I read Garfield. I was like, oh, he is a cat. He says he likes Mondays, but he's actually doesn't like Mondays.
Yeah.
So I think, and then also it's very non-political, Garfield. Like, he doesn't talk about anything that's that controversial, just sleeping and eating. And like in hundreds of years, like people are going to be sleeping and eating. So he just aimed to be as non-offensive as possible when he created Garfield.
Was that kind of the actual aim, or did it just kind of come out that way?
It was fully an aim. Jim Davis wanted to create a marketable character. He wanted to create something would sell, which is, as a younger artist, I looked at something like that and didn't respect it. I liked different comic book artists like Bill Watterson, the creator of Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
Because he seemed like such an outlier. He seemed like he was really dying for his art. But you cannot deny that Jim Davis has made a cultural impact. And even to this day, Garfield exists in meme culture.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ideas about that as well, which is because his Q score is so high, because he's so recognizable, and it's perfect like putty for remix culture.
Yeah.
To take something that everyone can recognize and then do their weird take on it.
It's like the true definition of when something's famous. That's how you know you've made it, if it's been memed a million times.
Exactly.
Certainly nowadays, anyways. Yeah.
If you've been memed, it means you've made it.
Yeah. Okay, so he went to school. Jim Davis went to school at Ball's University in Indiana. By the way, he's like never left Indiana.
Wow.
He studied art and business, which is how this character came about. And so his goal was to design a marketable character. And one of the first jobs he got was for another comic strip that was called Tumbleweeds.
I know that one. Tom Ryan's.
Yes, exactly. So through that, he learned like discipline and like how to put out art on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so then he proceeded to create a lovable character known as Gnat. You guys have probably never seen this, but
Gnat, like a insect.
Yeah, you guys can look it up. It's Gnat. It's spelled with G's.
Oh, like Gnasty Gnork.
Yes. And he tried and like with so much focus and so much dedication to get this strip out in the world of this gnat. And it's just a very weird strip if you look at it. Like, it's this ugly bug. There's nothing really appealing about it. But he put it out there and he like famously killed Gnat with classic Jim Davis humor.
Wow.
Which was the very last panel of Gnat is Norm looking at holding up a sign that says "The end is afoot," and then can you guess what the last panel is?
He jumped off a cliff.
It's a foot stepping on him.
God, he killed off his own character just to end the syndication of it. Just to end the...
He realized it wasn't working. So he took a look at the newspapers of the time and all the comic strips that were in there. And he realized there was a lot of dogs. There was Marmaduke. There was Snoopy. Dennis the Menace heavily features a dog.
Yeah, Gnasher.
But there was just no cats. This was the late 70s, by the way. So like newspapers really were the primary form of media at that time.
Yeah.
And the comic strip page was like the most viewed of all of the parts of the newspaper. I'm just saying that because I want you guys to understand that the landscape was different back then, you know?
Yeah, of course.
So he tells a story about how he rented a room at the Holiday Inn for 3 days and emerged with the idea and drawing of the original Garfield. And if you guys take a quick Google, the original Garfield actually sort of looks like a lumpy turd. He's like really ugly compared to the gold standard of Garfield that you have in your head when you think of Garfield.
When did that change?
Well, it's something Jim Davis has been working on since the very beginning to make Garfield more broad and more appealing. And one of his design theories with Garfield is that Garfield needs to stand in contrast to cuteness.
Okay.
Garfield is never cute in Jim Davis's mind. He's a character that's he's sarcastic and dry, and one of the foils, I don't know if you remember this cat named Nermal in Garfield, a little gray cat.
Oh, I know Nermal. Yeah. That's like his enemy.
Yeah, he's like the cutest kitty in the world is the idea. And he keeps sending him to Abu Dhabi is the joke.
I actually do remember that. I thought I'd forgotten.
I just can't imagine anything so great coming out of a Holiday Inn. That's amazing. Well, I guess it makes sense that it was like a turd first and then it like turned into greatness.
Here's a quote from Jim Davis regarding his thoughts on Garfield.
Oh.
It occurred to me that cats were being held back a little bit. I thought, I'll give a cat human thoughts and feelings and have him not be apologetic for it. That's very cat-like. Okay, so the strip ran in the Chicago Sun-Times and it was removed after 90 days. The newspaper strip just canned it.
Oh, sorry. Garfield was canceled straight away, was it?
Canceled straight away.
Wow.
So imagine this. The day they canceled it, the newspaper received 1,300 phone calls complaining that they wanted that Garfield cat back.
Wow.
So just imagine doing that like nowadays, like calling into a newspaper office.
I would never even call like a pizza place to get delivery. Like I'm just like, I can't talk to a human. Like that's amazing. And to say you want a comic strip back, I mean, maybe post on Reddit, but
yeah,
I guess maybe calling was the equivalent of like posting on a subreddit back then.
That's true, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or writing to a newspaper even.
Writing to a newspaper. Wow.
Yeah, you had to use a stamp.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's going to cost you 32 cents to voice your opinion.
Yeah.
That's why so many people didn't do it.
Which actually says a lot. It says how much they loved Garfield.
What if it cost 32 cents to complain online?
Oh God. Oh wow.
You had to send it to some address. You had to look that up. You know, now it's like easily accessible.
Just slide into those DMs.
If you want, I can throw in some facts about Garfield.
Oh yeah, throw in a fact, Cole.
I know that originally it was the first comic debuted in 1978.
Yes.
And that by 2002, it won the Guinness World Record for the most widely syndicated comic strip in the world. So within 26 years, it just exploded across the world. And I know even still that the most recent iteration of Garfield, the Garfield show, the CG animated one, even broadcasts in China.
Wait, there's a new TV show that's CG animated, or are we talking about those films?
Yes, it's called Garfield Gets Real, and the plot is he lives in a comic strip world which looks like shitty CGI, and then he goes to the quote-unquote real world where it looks also like shitty CGI.
They were the direct-to-movie videos. I know there was 3 of them. Garfield Gets Real, Garfield Fun Fest, and Garfield's Pet Force.
Dude.
But the Garfield show itself is like animated in France.
Yes.
And it's just been syndicated around the world now.
Even in China, you said?
Even in China, which is notoriously hard to get stuff into.
Wow.
Which kind of shows as well what you're talking about is how much appeal he has, just and how safe, non-political, just human stories through a cat.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let me get into the history after Garfield starts getting bigger, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he still looks like a lumpy.
Well, he just ate so much lasagna.
Oh, please. I can't get through this. He... Okay, so Garfield starts getting bigger. And
wow.
They begin to make TV specials of Garfield and Odie.
Yeah.
And these were in the early 80s, and it was the same company that made the Charlie Brown Christmas specials. Do you guys have those over there in Ireland?
Yeah, we know Charlie Brown and Snoopy and the Peanuts, yeah.
Yeah, The Great Pumpkin and The Meaning of Christmas or whatever that one was.
It's a very particular animation style, and this studio took on the first Garfield TV specials, and they realized that the lumpy turd design was actually very hard to animate.
The term lumpy turd.
Yeah.
Is that your own term?
Look,
or is
dude,
that
look him up, dude. He looks really weird. So what I've noticed is that his eyes have gotten longer and more balloon-like.
Yeah.
Over the last 30 years. And his eyes at the beginning are very small. And then that, like, those flaps, those, like, yellow things under his eyes, those have gotten way smaller and cuter. But those used to be huge and gelatinous.
Okay.
And he sat like a fat cat, which personally, I prefer the uglier look, the very 70s look, but that's just my taste.
Why is it? Why do you prefer it? Like,
oh, I'm just disgusting, you know? Like,
okay.
Like, I don't like things to look shiny and nice. I think one of my personal pet peeves is when Mickey got a flesh-colored face.
Oh.
That was disgusting. He needs a little white face. He's not designed to be in live action with a fleshy... What the fuck is going on with that?
You guys, I can ask you, because you both work in the industry, why do these designs always gravitate back towards the kind of anthropomorphic design? Is it just that everyone is used to animating that, that kind of simple rig of 4 limbs? Or what do you guys think about it?
Oh, yeah, it's way easier.
Yeah, on Rick and Morty, when we worked on it, like, if we did anything weird, like a 3-legged creature, they'd be like, no, nobody wants to figure that out.
Really?
Yeah, that's... A 3-legged walk sock would be really tough. I mean, because you'd have to do, you'd have to, put 2 legs together. It's a lot of work to figure out. It's not worth the money. That stuff, I mean, for TV animation, it needs to be more straightforward. It needs to be a language that everyone can understand.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're developing stuff for feature and you have all the money in the world to throw into a development oven, like, you can have weird and wacky and crazy shit.
Yeah.
But, you have to pay people who speak a different language to animate this character by hand.
Okay.
It needs to be pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It also humanizes him and grounds him so that he can grasp things, and it opens up a world of stories for the character.
Sometimes, because you do think sometimes if you limit a design to, specific, design, that it certainly closes down options. But I see what you mean by that it makes it far more relatable.
Well, like a 4-legged character can't grasp things. It's a much...
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues with that.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, but I know they have to come up with a lot of creative solutions.
Well, they just stand on 4 legs all the time, and then sometimes their arms come out and they stand on 3 and they grab things, but they don't have hands, so it's just they just paw everything. It feels really odd to experience sometimes because their interaction with the world can be very limited, and they have to bite things.
Which you think the world would be designed then a bit better to accommodate them if they're the species that have evolved.
Yeah. Well, they
definitely have to bite things.
They have all kinds of rules and stuff for the way those characters animate. Some characters can pick up things with their mind, I think.
Oh.
I feel like I've seen that before.
Yes, I've seen that too. Yeah.
And it's just tough on the board artists because the board artists had to figure out how to pose these characters and be able to read the pose even though they're always standing on 4 legs or something like that.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Pose is a super important part. Body language communicates a lot.
When I was on HBO's Animals, I mean, that's a show about animals, but the animals are super realistic and grotesque. So you have to animate like rats and horses and cockroaches and stuff like that. And they had to like draw scenes where horses would come into a room and sit down in a chair, and it's like, what the heck does a horse look like if it was sitting in a chair like a person? And it looks really strange, but the dialogue moves quickly, so you kind of don't notice.
And that anthropomorphization, which is a word I struggle with there, obviously leads us back to Garfield.
Yes, so like I said before, Garfield is not cute. He's relatable, not as a cute character, but as a cynical character, as a dark character, but just short of being unlikable. Therefore, he's as sellable as possible.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so one of the first major things that Garfield affected in a commercial basis was his books.
Okay, yeah.
Jim Davis, when you printed a comic strip with 3 or 4 panels, you used to have to print it vertically.
Okay.
So that you would have to hold the book, with the spine facing up to read it. And Jim Davis really didn't like that. He felt like it messed up the whole flow of it.
Okay.
So he futzed around and came up with this idea of basically just cutting another book in half and made those long comic strip panels, which to this day in publishing circles are called the Garfield Format.
Wow.
So those books, Brent, if you remember, they used to come at book fairs.
Oh, the book fair, yeah, the ones I never remembered to ask my parents for money for.
Oh no, that breaks my heart.
But even when you saw them on a bookshelf, they don't really fit. Like they're such an odd shape.
Yeah.
So therefore, you need to put them on the end caps, which, if you know anything about stocking books, is primo real estate.
Smart boy.
For coverage. So Garfield was, again, just like through the innovation of Jim Davis's half book, became insanely marketable and insanely sellable and insanely successful.
That business degree really came in handy.
Oh yeah.
Garfield is all business. If it's not comedy, then I don't know what else it is.
Oh, it's comedy. Let me feed you another quote.
Oh yes, give me the sweet sauce.
Jim update, I'm not there. He updated you on the gym.
Oh.
The what? I don't, wait, what?
I think that
Oh.
it just says Jim update.
Is this a tweet?
It's a quote from Garfield.
He's telling you Jim update.
I'm not there.
Oh, the Garfield is not there to tell you a gym update, so he's giving you a gym update by telling you he doesn't know anything.
He's not at the gym.
He's not at the gym.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was JIM because Jim Davis. Wait, what's the owner's name?
Jim Davis.
Yeah, Jim Davis.
No. The owner of the.
His name is John Arbuckle.
John Arbuckle. Oh my God. I thought it was like, dude. I feel like John Arbuckle is a can of worms as well, because he is like the most self-hating, pathetic white milk toast guy who will put up with this cat.
Well, he has a lovely dog as well.
That's true. The dog is what he has going for him.
The cats are never your friend.
Here's another quote from Garfield. My door is always open, so feel free to leave.
Oh.
This feels very different than the Garfield I knew growing up, which was always encouraging me.
Do you know what's funny as well? One thing that I've noticed when I was doing my research of Garfield, obviously how business savvy Jim Davis is, but just how smart he was about using Garfield, obviously with reading and all the educational stuff like the book fairs and stuff, but also I remember there was an environmental campaign years ago, and also sleep campaigns and all these things about mental health and global health and reading.
Garfield encouraged people to sleep?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, well, he does sleep.
Sleep well, do well.
Yeah, he also eats.
He also eats.
I do remember that. That is a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where if you want your notebooks, if you're a merchandiser and you want your notebooks, if you want your shoes, if you want your campaign to read to sell well, you really don't want to go to Disney, and deal with them and all their lawyers. You really don't want to go to like DC and try to get Superman or something like that. There's this weird guy in Indiana who has an orange cat with a 95% Q rating, and he's like, hey, come on over to Garfield Town. I'll give it to you cheap. Like he gets used wherever possible. It's a very appealing character.
Okay.
I'm not lazy. I'm a master of energy conservation.
Oh, yes. That's good.
I think another reason that this is memed so much is that people who didn't grow up with Garfield, the younger generation, when they look back at Garfield and say, what the hell is this? And like look at the comic strips and actually read any of them, they're so bad. Everyone's confused. They're like, why was this ever so popular? It's very similar to what's going on with Shrek right now.
Well, I love Shrek.
I love Shrek as well, but Shrek is also a huge part of meme culture.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why, but it's like this sweet spot of CG animation where it's like still kind of fucking ugly, and they use Smash Mouth in the movie, which if you look at the music video for Smash Mouth is so of that era, those early 2000s, that embarrassing early 2000s era. Yeah, we're on a tangent, but there's a reason Shrek is a meme.
And what is the reason Garfield's a meme?
Just because, like, as you look back on it, there's so much of it. There's 23,000 comic strips of Garfield and counting. And it all sucks, but it's been around for so long.
How did you come across it then?
It was there throughout my childhood.
But why did you start drawing him?
That's a really good question. I didn't have an answer prepared. Well, he's a really good silhouette, I guess, is one thing I would say as a character designer.
Yeah, you can say that now because you understand it.
Yes, but I think it's also, a reason that people draw Sonic and people draw Mickey Mouse like when they're younger.
Okay, yeah.
The silhouette is so strong. In fact, the show Phineas and Ferb, they were designed to be drawable by kids with like huge shapes in their silhouette.
Big triangle heads.
Exactly. So I think as a child, it was kind of this this anti, but like a kid could absorb the anti-ness of it,
Yeah.
Take that, mom,
Okay.
That was appealing. That drew me in. But then once I was there, I could identify Garfield really well, from his silhouette. And so I would start to try to practice. I remember practicing the hands a lot. I remember practicing the feet a lot. Did you draw Garfield, Brent?
Maybe once, but I drew a lot of stuff like that era of design that permeated like in the early 90s, and because that's what made up visual culture, and that's what you draw from.
Totally. I mean, Garfield is like he's like raw cartoon.
Yes, boiled down.
Yes,
that's a really good point.
So eventually, Jim Davis, Garfield got bigger and bigger, and he ended up creating something called Paws Inc., which still exists today, which is where they make Garfield. There's over 50 artists employed there. Jim Davis himself spends 1 week a month actually writing out all the gags and strips, and then hands them to the rest of his artists that they complete. And Jim Davis then spends the other 3 weeks of the month doing business deals, negotiating contracts, et cetera, et cetera. And he's still involved to this very day, just as much. He works, I think, 12-hour days.
And the success proves it. But obviously, that's not someone sitting on their laurels. That's someone still very much pushing forward.
Definitely. It is estimated that Garfield's merchandise makes $800 million to $1 billion annually.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Still to this day, even though we live in a generation of like Zoomers.
In 1984, it was in 26,000 newspapers.
Wow.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, it has the Guinness World Book of Record for being the world's most widely syndicated comic strip, and it still holds that record to this day.
Still? Wow. You think something like Dilbert might catch up with it?
Dilbert's only funny to engineers and people who have office jobs. Although I really liked it when I was a kid.
Yeah. I like it. I remember the animated show for Dilbert as well.
Oh, dude, that was good. I remember that. I loved that as a kid. Because it was like, I don't know, it was like Office Space before Office Space.
Yeah.
And there was only one season of it. Comedy Central like put it on at like 2 a.m. because they were like, no one's watching this.
Was there only ever one season? God, I must really go back and
it was canceled immediately.
Oh dear.
Somebody should rewatch that.
Dilbert, yeah, I'll have a crack at it.
Dude, I remember it being like amazing. Like when I was a kid, I was like, this is so smart and funny.
One thing I do want to actually go back and watch as well is the original Garfield TV series, Garfield and Friends.
Yes.
It's not the specials, but this is the one. Because I
Yes.
remember even as a kid watching that, I actually really picked up on something. Only in later years I realized that it was actually really well animated. It was really well put together. What I'd like to ask, Max, right, is obviously you've done a lot of research about Garfield, and I really appreciate it. Obviously, it's the first thing that you drew, which led to where you are now. That time you picked up a pen and pencil, or just pencil, or whatever you drew with, chalk, charcoal, whatever was available back in the day in San Francisco, isn't it?
Yeah, I grew up in San Francisco.
But how has that affected you now, where you are?
Well, I mean, what I was drawing when I was a little kid was Garfield Sonic.
Yeah, of course.
I remember his shoes were... I learned to draw his shoes, and that was a point of pride for me.
And still is to this day.
And Mickey Mouse, I believe.
Of course, yeah.
And those are super identifiable silhouettes. All pretty much the same character base, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse, they all sort of have that ball middle with those long limbs and big hands and big feet.
Is that something that you still draw on because obviously being a character designer?
Yes, I am a character designer, and
It's like you're coming to terms with it, or at an AA meeting.
it is the first, that's like kind of, I guess, in animation, the first thing you learn to do when you animate is a bouncing ball and then the potato sack character. This is kind of the character design basics. You can see really clearly what the structure of it is. It's expressive. It's appealing. There's a reason those characters last. And I mean, I can make a list of why now, because now I've studied this kind of stuff, but I wonder why I can't go back to my child brain.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Without thinking of everything that I've learned along the way, which is that they have fantastic silhouettes, and you can see what direction they're facing. They have a motif on them, like of shapes, like circles and stuff. So, and they were easy enough to draw. Like they weren't anime characters, you know?
Yeah. I get what you mean. Very simple. Sometimes I think that as kids, like, we do understand things, but it's only later in life we get the context to explore what we've always understood. Do you know what I mean? So what you're saying there is, now that you've studied it, you can go back and say it was this, and it was this. That really helped me with Garfield. But even then, back in the day, you could feel that nearly, but just couldn't express it. Does that make sense? Or am I putting words in your mouth?
That makes total sense. And it's one of those things that we could definitely talk theory on for a long time. Like the masking effect by Scott McCloud, where he basically says that like cartoons are appealing to kids because the cartoon is less detailed. So there ends up being more of your, like, more space for you to put yourself, to project your own image on it. It's a vacuum that you get to live through. Brent, can you explain that better than me?
No, it's exactly right. Well, we just identify a lot more with characters that have simple, recognizable, and non-iconic face shapes, like things that are not too extreme one direction. Yeah. If you look at anime, it's a very good example. The main characters kind of all have this exact same face shape with just different hair. But the side characters are more caricatured. They look more like a person with a specific motif. And you're not really supposed to identify with them. You're supposed to put yourself in the place of the main character. You're supposed to feel like the normal person. You assume the mask of the person they want you to be. And it's the same it's the same with Disney movies. Like the main cast, the princesses and the princes have these super generic faces that are just these animation rehash things that are very, very forgiving immediately. Yeah. And it's only gotten worse in years. I mean, all the CGI Disney princesses look exactly the same, regardless of all the R&D they put into them.
But even if you look at an actor like Tom Cruise, you're seeing Tom Cruise. But when you look at a cartoon, you see yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we like those Rage comics. Yeah, we like them because we know it's actually just a stick figure, but it's assumed the identity of a stick figure that's angry, so we can see ourselves in it.
Yes.
It's not a character, it's you.
It's the emotion that you feel. It's just portrayed through them.
Yes.
Yeah, you think that if you go from realistic to cartoony, you're actually stripping away detail, but in fact, you're being selective of detail.
Yeah.
You're giving more space for the viewer.
There's a really famous caricature artist. I can't remember. I think he worked for the New York Times for a long time. But he always used to say that when he stripped down to a caricature, that the person looked more like a person than a photograph of that person.
It is, yeah, that's
because
true.
They were able to just capture the elements of it. And that's why I know even in the brain, I'm getting a bit theory heavy here, so apologies, but where our language is formed is disconnected from where our emotions are, and that's why we struggle so much to speak what we feel, but it's a lot easier to associate visually with how we feel. So I think that kind of plays definitely into the idea of those stick figures being really identifiable because we're able to place the emotions that we feel on them.
Wow, I want to take your class now.
Oh, I want to take your guys' class. I just picked up I want to take Brent's class.
Well, there is a waiting list.
Is there really? That's amazing. Congratulations.
I limited it to 12 people. Couldn't teach 20 people.
Oh, wow. That's
much work.
Yeah, it's too much time. It's too much time consuming.
I actually stopped teaching my class at Art Center, even though I love it.
What?
It's so much emotional, giving. It's really hard for me.
It is. I empathize with Max a lot on that because mine has been very stressful for me.
Wow.
I didn't realize that going into it.
No, and I think it could be the same because you guys are very generous with your time, and even with BaM Animation, or as people should know, Brent and Max Animation. Like, you're so generous with all the skills and everything that you've learned throughout to just share it with everyone else.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm sure that's really time consuming as well, creating all that stuff on top of working and on top of teaching classes.
It totally is, but we actually get enjoyment out of it, which I think is why we do it. It's not completely altruistic. I think we actually enjoy just seeing the response and helping people and seeing the numbers go up. And it's done a lot of great things for us in our career as well. So there's a lot of non-tangible benefits to doing it that I feel like always keep us going.
Where did it start?
A Facebook message. Just asked Max if he wanted to make a YouTube channel.
Really?
Yeah, and he just said all caps yes.
And then
we filmed at my house.
Yeah, I pitched him the idea in a Facebook message. I just said, okay, the channel is people send in their artwork and we just redraw it and I think that was the pitch. And then Max ran with it a bit more. He added more in, and then we did a couple test shoots. At one point we tried to film with my drone because I thought that the drone had a really good camera.
Yeah.
And then that was really stupid.
Just sitting there?
No. We because you can just perch a drone on a flat surface.
No. The drone was on. The audio was garbage.
Yeah, such a good sound.
Yeah. And eventually I did a bunch of tests with my phone and I was like, okay, I can with really good lighting and if I change all the settings to manual and lock in exactly the exposure, we can get something that actually looks sort of good. And we just started rolling with that.
We were the only two young people on season 2 of Rick and Morty. There might have been a couple more.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of experienced vets.
Okay.
And me and Brent were both fairly new to the industry. So I think it's one of the reasons we got along.
And Garfield is pretty cool, to be fair. To think the reach, it is such an incredible reach around the world. And you were saying something earlier of we still don't know how is it still going, how is it popular. Obviously with the work of Jim Davies, just pushing it ahead. But also, you're right, the character design is so simple that there's clocks of them, there's bags of them. I'm sure if you went to Japan, there'd be shops of them, that kind of thing. Like a Totoro or something. It's just really...
Yeah, they got body pillows.
Yeah. They've got many Garfield things. He's just so merchandisable. He's probably the most successful cat in the world.
That's a really good point. Is Hello Kitty more successful?
Yeah.
Oh, dang, actually.
I don't know. Grumpy Cat. But like Garfield has like 2 movies and 3 TV shows.
Yeah.
20.
Sorry, not Grumpy Cat. I think he would probably be in direct competition with Hello Kitty.
Yeah, I think Grumpy Cat is kind of like the new Garfield meta.
Yeah.
Asia also loves this blue cat with a magic pocket.
Oh.
Do you know that guy?
I don't think so.
Doraemon, isn't it? Doraemon?
Dorono? Is that how you say it?
No, Doraemon, I think it is.
Yes, Doraemon.
He's no ears?
Doraemon.
Yeah.
No ears, yeah, but he's a cat, yeah.
And he's blue because he's so sad that his ears were chopped off that he turned blue.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Learned that off a Japanese person.
Wow.
So what I'll do is we'll leave it there. Okay. I really appreciate it. Brent, what we can do is next time we'll talk about your show from your heart and homeland of Texas. I won't say what we picked.
Oh, okay. I won't say it.
But yeah, don't say it yet. But I'm really looking forward to it. And obviously, Max, you'll be there as well to help guide us along these trails through America.
Yeah. And I just will say one more Garfield quote, which is the problem with mornings is they should start later.
Well, hey-o.
Oh.
Hey.
I wish they did. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If anyone out there wants to look at BaM Animation, you can go to their YouTube. The guys are also so generous with their drawing skills and everything. So if you want to send them their art, I think it's bam.redrawmyart@gmail.com, isn't it?
Bingo.
That's the email.
I don't know how big your backlog is, but it's possible your art may appear in their channel.
Well, we always look for new art, and we never know what a new episode idea is going to be, so there's always a chance.
There you go, guys. But thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Here comes Garfield. Look out, here comes Garfield. Look out, I said, here comes Garfield. So you better look out.